Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Class 47 Peter YouTube channel. And today I'm going to be doing a layout update. Now, it's been a while since I last did one of these videos, and so today I thought it was time that I did another one of these, because there has been some work being done on the layout. Some of you guys might have spotted a couple of things that have changed on the layout, and some things that have been added to the layout in the past couple of videos, which the reason you saw those videos uploaded before this one, I've explained it before, but the reason was I just simply didn't want to have a backlog of videos, so those vids got uploaded first before this one. So, like I say, a couple of things have been changed on the layout. Also, I've added bits and bobs here and there, new things have been added onto the layout, which you shall see in this video. And what's been done on the layout recently will be explained in this video. And also, I have some new arrivals that have turned up recently, which you shall see in the video as well. And also, do you like my new t-shirt? I just couldn't resist wearing it, it just had to be done. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed today's video. It's not going to be a boring one by all means, it's definitely something that you guys are going to find entertaining, I'm sure. So, I'm going to leave you now. I'm going to show you with what's been done on the layout. So, hope you enjoy the video and take care. Now, I've decided that I'm going to be revising this area a little bit. That's because, as you've probably noticed, I don't seem to run trains up along here into these, what I like to call the bay platforms, very often. And there is a very good reason for that, and that is because a lot of the stock doesn't seem to like going up here, especially the Class 158, which, trying to go up here, it derails on the points, and I think that's probably due to the fact that the points are probably a bit naff. I mean, when they're not set, no problem, but as soon as they are set, oh, it's, nothing's happened that time. Well, actually, no, tell a lie. The back car did derail. So I think, to be honest with you, the points could do with being replaced. It's derailed then, as I've just seen. So I think I'm going to replace the points, because I think they could do with being replaced with some better ones. And also the tracks up here, they could do with a clean as well, especially given the state of the track. So that's going to be the first thing I'm going to be doing. Right, viewers, so what we've done is we've replaced that set of points with a new set of points. The old set of points, they were no good, to be honest with you. Especially if you find that trains are going to start derailing on the points, then there's a problem, so they had to be replaced. This piece of track here had to be replaced as well. I have also re-nailed down the track and put some ballast in, although I could still do putting a few little bits of ballast in places. Also, this track here has had a good clean. I mean, there's still a few little bits of dirt in places, but it's cleaner than it was before. And so now I'm going to run the 158 down here. Now, originally I found that running it up here, it kept derailing round here. One of the bogies was. And I noticed that, well, we noticed that the track had moved. And so what we've done is we've sort of fetched the track in a bit. And this now seems to work. Look at that. Like a glove. I mean, I did at one point considering putting express points in to make it gentler, because I thought that maybe this curve was too sharp, but in actual fact when nailing the track down it had moved, so it had made it a bit sharper, so it had otherwise moved the track out a bit. So moving the track in a bit, it now seems to have worked. Don't you just love model railways, eh? The joys of having them. But this is working now, so I can now start using this line more often, and it means I can now start using these two platforms here more often in my videos. So that's made me happy that I can now finally run my DMUs up on this section of track without problems, and other trains as well if I want to. So I'm quite pleased with that. Around the layout I've been adding these speed restriction signs, which are made by Scale Model Scenery, and this is the first kit I've built from Scale Model Scenery in a while, because I've had these since last year, and to be honest I didn't really feel at the time like putting them together, painting them up and fitting them on the layout. I don't know why. So now I thought it was the time to get them on the layout, and so that's what I've done. So here we have a 125 mph speed limit sign. That's on the up line, and I've fitted that there, which I think that looks really rather good there, that does. Especially by all the scenery detail there. Then outside the tunnel we have the same speed restriction, just outside the tunnel on the down line. Outside the station we have a couple of 50 mph speed restriction signs. Again, one for the up line and one for the down line, as you can see. And then on this side of the layout we have a 70 mph speed limit. That's on the down line by that set of points and next to the narrow gauge line. And then over here we have the same speed limit for the up line. I fitted that there in front of that wall because there was no other room to put it really, without it being too close to the line, because I feared that trains would catch on it and make them derail or just knock it over. And so I fitted those because they're a nice bit of detail to have, and I've put them there just for the sake of the detail really. I've also been adding some of these. These are climbing vines with flowers. And I've added them in a couple of places along here on these walls because, to be honest, I felt that, you know, not to have detail like this, just to have these plain walls all along here. Along the front there I felt that looked a little bit bland. So I've added these climbing vines and I am quite pleased with them. They look really nice there. So there's some that I've added there, and I'm quite pleased with how that looks. And I've also added some here, but I've added a lot more on that one, so it looks like more vines has grown on it, so it adds a bit of variety, rather than trying to create the same effect. I've tried to create a different one. And I'll just show you the other side. So it does overgrown slightly on the pavement, but you know, you do get that in real life sometimes, so I figured why not try that there. And again, it's a nice effect to have, and adds to the more detail, to be honest. Especially because they don't look as plain now. I mean, there are other details that I could add, which I do plan. There are other details I'm going to add in this area particularly, but that's for another time. Now, for these past several videos, you will have noticed that the layout has gained a new signal box. The original signal box I had on the layout is this one, which this is one from the Hornby Thomas the Tank range. And to be honest with you, I didn't really like this signal box, to be honest. It's also damaged as well in a number of places, and I just didn't really like it all that much, to be honest. And so I thought I'd get a better looking signal box for the layout. And in comes this signal box, which, like I say, I mean, you've probably noticed this on the layout during these past several recent videos from earlier this year. And this signal box is a Bachmann Scenecraft Art Deco signal box, which I got from eBay. And I am very, very pleased with this. I think it looks much better on the layout than this signal box. I think the Art Deco signal box is more suited to the layout than the original signal box I had. And in my opinion, this signal box looks much better on the layout. I mean, it's been on the layout for a while, this signal box, but I've never really spoke about it in videos, so I thought I'd mention this. The village has some Lswr beacons. These are the Gauge Master ones. Now, the layout previously did have some Lswr beacons, or at least that was the plan to have some. The only problem was, though, with the previous ones I had, the bulbs went in them, because then they got shorted out and they couldn't be used. And so, since then I had been meaning for a long time to get some Lswr beacons for the layout. And so we have these ones, which, like I say, they're the Gauge Master ones, and I bought these ones because you get the zebra crossing with them, which is a sticker, which I have cut to length, and it's been placed down. It has been glued on. I'm not going to rely on the sticky bit at the back because it probably won't last forever. And so I'm rather happy with them, and as you can see, they are working, and I think they look fantastic. The village has gained some street lights, which I think for this area they were much needed. They're the same ones that I've used as the ones on the high street. They're the ones that you can buy from China. They are a pain to solder because the wires are steel, but they do look really nice there. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn the lights off, and I'm going to show you the lights lit. So I've turned the lights off in the garage, and so here are the street lights. They're lit up so you can see them better, and they look fantastic there, especially when they're lit up like this. So I'm well happy with those. So another problem that has been sorted has involved the bay platform here next to the 158. I'll just remove that station canopy. All this track that was originally there has been replaced because the track that was previously there was in a poor state. Trains couldn't run up to this platform because of how poor the track was. So I've replaced the track. It's been nailed down. It's not been reballasted yet. That's something to do later on. But also another problem I had, trains kept catching on the side of the platform. So to prevent that from happening, I've moved the track out a bit, and also I have had to modify that side of the platform. As you can see, it has been filed down quite a bit. So now we're going to test it by running up the Class 156 up to that platform. And look at that. That's cured the problem. And so I'm well happy with that. And so this means that now that these two bay platforms, the track has been sorted, which now means that I can finally run trains up to these platforms. It means that I can now start using these railway lines more often. I can now start using the bay platforms more. And this is something that I'm planning to do in running session videos, because now they can be featured more often. I can now run trains up to these platforms, mostly my DMUs up to these platforms, and so I'm really happy that I've now got the track on both platforms to work again. Of course, in doing that, that has meant that there is quite a big gap there now in between the 156 and the platform. But to be honest with you, there isn't really much that I can do about that, because the problem is, if the track is too close to the platform, you're not going to be able to run trains up to the platform. So either way, the track has got to be moved out a bit, or the platform has got to be moved out. But I'm not really fussed about that, because hopefully in my videos, running session videos, you won't be able to tell. that there's a gap between the train and the platform. So now I'm going to talk about the high street. Now, for several months you all have seen the high street looking as it does now. The high street has totally changed from how it used to look, and I've never talked in a video about what's been changed or why I've changed it. I was going to do a video on the changes to the high street, which I did film, and I have got footage on my desktop, but because of how long it's taking to upload it, I am unsure if I am going to be uploading it. I may do at some point, but if I do, it won't be anytime soon. Now, with the high street, the reason I changed it is because I was never very happy with it. The pavement was just painted on and done very crudely. Half the high street didn't even have any street lights. It only went up to, I think, about to here, and then the rest of it had no street lights on it at all. I thought there was far too many figures on the high street. I just simply glued them down without any care in the world, to be honest. And as for the buildings, some of them looked out of place. It was mismatched of lower leaf buildings and buildings that were non-lower leaf, so they didn't look right. And then again, there were buildings that you wouldn't find as well on a high street that were there, and I just didn't really like it. And prior to changing the high street, as the days went on, I didn't like it even more, and I thought to myself, I can do better than this, much better. And so that led to me changing the high street. So what I did, I went out and bought some Metcalfe paving sheets. They were cut to size and to shape. The end ones, they've been rounded off to make them look better and more realistic looking. And then they were glued in place. I did have a couple of problems with some of them lifting up and had to be glued back down again. There's some lifting going on there with that one, but when a building goes there, that should hopefully weigh that down. And having glued down these Metcalfe paving sheets, they now look much better, miles better, than the crude painted pavement that was there before. Looks much more realistic now and better with the buildings in place. Then what I did, I bought some high street lights, and these are the same ones that I've used on the village, and these are the ones you can buy from China for about 12 quid, and they go down across the whole length of the high street. One of them has decided to stop working, so I need to sort that out, but the high street now has lights going all the way down it, and not having one half of it with street lights and one half without it. And that looks miles better as well, especially when the lights are turned off. To see all the lights on, it looks mesmerising. And then there's the buildings. Only some of them from the original high street have gone on this new one, because the rest of them have since been thrown away because of the condition they were in. A couple of them do survive. There's the cinema there, and the timber frame shop front, and those two lower leaf terraced houses there, which I made myself from those kits from that magazine, which I've done a video on. All the rest of them are from Bachmann Scenecraft. Now, this is the reason why the high street is not quite finished yet, because to source the buildings that I'm after, it's taking time. The most recent one I've purchased is that one, the Bachmann Low Relief High Street store, which is Beatties. That was one that I'd been after for ages, and as soon as I saw one turn up on a model railway trading group on Facebook, I snapped it up. And I do have fond memories of Beatties when I was a kid. I went in there a few times, and when it came to the model railways and toys, it was like an Aladdin's cave. It's sadly now since long gone, which is a shame. It's just memories now, so that's why I bought it, and it fits in very well on the high street. Which, this is the thing, because I want to go out and buy buildings that you would see on a high street. I don't just want to buy any random buildings and just plonk them down like I did last time, because that way I know that I'll be happy with it, rather than placing buildings and stuff all the way down here that I'm not happy with. Because I am now much more happier with the high street as it's looking now, even if it's still unfinished. Now for the people. Now there aren't many figures glued on the high street at the moment. There are a couple that are on there, but I don't want to overdo it with the figures like I did last time, because I want to glue figures down in a certain place, and I also only want to add a certain amount of figures. And I also want to do it so that the figures on the layout, they sort of tell a story, very much like I've done with on my platforms with the figures I've added. So for example here, by the hairdresser, we've got a young woman going in to the hairdresser, and she's got a handbag with her, and she's going into the hairdresser to get her hair cut. Then we have a couple, a man and wife, who've just walked out of a shop. They've been on a shopping spree together, and the shop that I've come out of is the model centre. It just had to be done. Somewhere I had to have a model shop on the layout, had to be on the high street, and I just had to have a scene with a man and his woman walking out of that shop together as if they've both been shopping in there. It just had to be done. It's something that I can look at and it can make me smile. Then we have this guy over here, and he has a black bin bag in his hand, and he's going to be picking up that newspaper that someone's thrown down. Tut tut tut. Litterbugs, eh? And then, just outside Beatties, and this is a figure that I've just added, I've added this guy sat in his armchair playing a guitar just outside Beatties. His guitar case is on the floor by him. That's there so that anybody walking by can throw in their odd pennies. And you do get people outside of stores playing instruments on streets like this, so I thought I'd add one on the layout. Now over the past several months, the layout has gained some new road vehicles, which the eagle-eyed among you may have spotted on the layout. So I'm going to talk about them, as I might as well, in this video. So we have a Ford Sapphire Cosworth in white. We have a Volvo. That one is very nice, in that metallic blue colour. And then we have a Rover SD1 in the Moonraker blue. I think that is one of Oxford Diecast's best models that they've made. We've also got a Ford Transit over there, but I'll talk a bit more about that one later. We have an Aston Martin. Now I can't remember which one this is, but the colour is cobalt blue. Very nice colour that is. And then we have a Ford Focus. Now I've always loved these cars when I was a kid, so naturally I had to have one on the layout. This one was originally a Carorama one. However, this particular one didn't come in a Carorama box. It came in a box made by some other manufacturer whose name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce. It has been modified slightly though. One of the plastic headlights on the front was missing, so I filled them in and then painted them so it sort of blends in with the other vehicles. And also the cage detail on the inside, which made it look more like a rally car, I've removed it. So now it just looks like a road going car. A car you'd see on the road, but with a spoiler on the back. Then over here we have an E-Type Jag in red. As you can see, it's parked next to the E-Type Jag from Austin Powers, which I've had for years. The one in red is a recent acquisition because I wanted to get one of these in red. However, when you get this model, it has the convertible roof up attached onto the windscreen. So what I did, I removed the roof, and you can see it as it is now, as I modified it to look as it does. Because personally I think it looks better with the roof folded down. In my opinion, the E-Type Jag is the most beautiful car that was ever built, and one of the best British built cars that was ever made. And so I do really love the look of these things. And then over here we have a Ford Cortina parked outside the pub. Over here we have a Volvo Estate in light blue, and then here we have a modern day Range Rover in blue. That's a darker blue colour. Now the layout has also gained some buses. Here we have a Dennis Trident in Travel West Midlands livery, but this is in the 50th Jubilee livery, which this bus carried in real life in 2002. Now I did see a lot of the Dennis Tridents when I was a kid. This is a bus from my childhood. I did also get to ride on some of them as well, and this is a bus that I did see in this livery, and there's a chance that I may have even ridden on this bus. And so when I learned that a model had been produced all those years ago, I can't remember who manufactured it, but when I saw there was a model of one, I just had to buy one, and so I did. And this was actually a limited edition as well. I have got the certificate for this model somewhere, and I do really love that. I think that looks stunning. And then over here we have a West Midlands Metrobus. That's in the Walsall Corporation livery, which this bus got painted into during the late 90s. They also appeared in some of the other heritage colours as well. I don't remember seeing this bus in real life in this livery, but I did see a lot of these Metrobuses when I was a kid. Again, it was a bus from my childhood. I saw a lot of them in the Travel West Midlands livery, and I did actually ride on some as well. And when I saw it in the Walsall Corporation blue livery, I just had to have it, because it's very appropriate, because I do live in the Walsall area. In the village we have a Volvo B7RLE, and this one is in, again, Travel West Midlands livery. All the buses I have are in Travel West Midlands livery because I live in the West Midlands, so most appropriately that they are in Travel West Midlands colours. And this one has the destination City Centre, Tyseley, Acox Green, Alton and Solihull. Solihull and Tyseley I have been to, so there was some slight bias there. And this is a very nice model. Beautiful model, in fact. And so that fits in rather well there, I think. And then last but not least, we have an Optar Solo in Travel West Midlands colours. Again, another bus from my childhood, because I do remember seeing these in this livery. And that is heading towards the station. So I might actually put a bus shelter here somewhere, because it's doing a shuttle service to the station. And that's a very nice model as well. And so that is all the buses that I have on the layout. So here we have the building site. Over there we have a pile of bricks. That's a scale model scenery kit. We have the Ancorton security fencing in the back, Bachmann Scenecraft mobile offices, and the scale model scenery salt and grit bins. I've talked about those before, but something I've newly added is that Bachmann chemical drum there. There's a few other little bits of data I'd like to add to this site if I'm honest. But take note of this scene that's going on. On site there's a Ford Transit van that's parked up, and there are two workers who are unloading crates of beer. Now there's a little story with the workers and the beer crates and that little trolley there, because I won those in a Westall Wagon Works wagon giveaway competition, which wasn't last year but I think the year before. And I won those with a Bachmann Conflat wagon in Pigford's livery, which you will have seen a few times running around on the layout. Now the story with this scene is the driver of the van was meant to deliver the crates of beer either to a pub or a restaurant, and then he was forgetful, lost track, and then took a wrong turning and ended up on the building site. Now the two workers, we'll call them Harry and Barry, they're new to the job on the building site, and they were expecting a delivery which they had to unload, but obviously they didn't pay any attention at all during their briefing, and so they thought that the crates of beer was to be delivered to the site, and so they've unloaded them. And so both the workers and the van driver are in for a telling off. Also on the side of the Ford Transit it says Fox Hill Junction. Now this Ford Transit van I've customised myself. Those Fox Hill Junction transfers that you see on the side of the Ford Transit, they were made by Jeff Reedman of Jumbo Lane Printing. I asked him to make me these logos so I could customise some Ford Transits, and so he made some for me, and that little van there has got that transfer on, and I'm well happy with that, because it's a nice little nod to the layout. It's nice to have a personalised van with the layout name on it, and it's got a fox head with the Fox Hill Junction in it, just as a logo to have on the side of the van, and so I do quite like that. So here we have the other personalised Ford Transit van. This is a larger one than the other. Now, as you can see, that one as well has a Fox Hill Junction logo transfer made by Jumbo Lane Printing, and I'm really happy with those, because it's nice to have a personalised Ford Transit van on the layout, I think. Now, the reason that van's parked up on the pavement there is because I'm going to do a scene somewhere around here in this area using some of these Bachmann trackside workers. Now, I've had these for a year or two now, and they've been sat inside this packaging and have not been put on the layout yet, but I will get around to doing that soon. Now, the next part in this video, I'm going to turn my attention to this area here, which, as you can see, has been heavily fly tipped. Now, this area I thought was lacking in detail, because before it just had static grass on it, and so I was thinking of ideas of what to put in this area, and then I thought, why not do a fly tipping area on this, make an area that's been fly tipped, and that's exactly what I've done. And I have gone to town with it. Some people might think I've gone OTT with it and been rather excessive with it, but you do get areas that have been heavily fly tipped. I know, because I've come across them myself. And so what I've done is, with this area, as you can see, there's a lot of rubbish thrown around the place in various different areas. You got some black bags, which they've come off eBay. We've got a couple of washing machines and a fridge, they're from eBay as well. Also some fence panels. These particular ones here are the scale model scenery ones, which I have modified to make them look like they've got panels missing and they're damaged. There's also a toilet that someone's just thrown down there. We've got an overturned armchair. We've got planks of wood. There's some tyres, window frames, and the rest of the rubbish that you see strewn about is either newspapers, crisp packets, you do have a receipt as well down there, and a McDonald's bag, and also carrier bags as well. There's also a couple of drink cans as well. I have still left some of the area as it is plain before it was fly tipped on it, basically. I don't want to go too mad with it, but I am rather happy with that. And it's strange, because with fly tipping it makes the place look untidy and messy. I don't like fly tipping, I have to admit, but somehow in model form it seems to add to detail on a layout. Another area that I've fly tipped is that area over there, and so I've added black bags down by that sign. There's a fridge, a washing machine, window frame, and you got an armchair and a sofa, a couple of black bags in places, as well as various other bits such as newspaper. I think that's supposed to be tin foil, carrier bags, drink cans, and crisp packets, as well as a receipt there as well that someone's decided to just throw down. So again, I am quite pleased with that area. And so again, it's stuff like that that adds to the detail. Now I've reached the point in this video where I'm going to be talking about some new arrivals. Now before anyone gets excited, they're not locomotives or rolling stock. They are buildings to go on the high street. They're all lower leaf buildings, of course. And there are 4 new buildings here, and these are to go on the high street. So first of all, we have the largest of the 4 buildings. This is a Hornby Scaledale Lower Leaf County Hall. They're all Hornby Scaledale buildings. And I bought this building because I thought it would look nice on the high street. And I do have a plan in mind for this building. The next new building is Highland Mills. Very nice looking building, that. Next we have Ye Old Tea Shop. Another nice looking building, that one. And then last but not least, we have a carpet store, Rainbow Carpets. I quite like the look of this one. So those are all of the new buildings that I have for the high street. And so now I'm going to get these added to the high street, which I'm very much looking forward to doing. So the new buildings have gone on the high street. So first of all, we have the county hall. And I've put that there up that corner, and I think it looks really rather nice on the high street. Originally I wanted to put it around there, but it wouldn't fit, so I've put it there up the corner, where it does fit. And also, I had a problem with this back seating, because that was hanging out a bit and pushing the other buildings forward. So I needed something heavy to push it back. That building is quite big, and it's quite heavy, and so placing it there, that's pushed the back seam back. Next to the county hall, you have the 2 terraced houses and Parsons properties. So there's some space there for more buildings to go on. I'm thinking of getting a block of flats, which will look nice there, I think, and some other buildings will go there. So that county hall, that's filled in a much needed big space. Then on this side of the high street, next to Beatties, we have Rainbow Carpets, in between Beatties and the bank. The bank was originally over there a bit, but that's been moved forward to get Rainbow Carpets in. And none of these buildings are glued down, other than those 2 there. And that's so that I need to move buildings around, should I need to do so, to get other buildings in. Which I think it makes sense to do that, I think. And I quite like Rainbow Carpets there, in between Beatties and the bank. And there's a sale on at Rainbow Carpets as well, as you can see. Which those sale signs already come on the building when you first buy it. Next to the bank, we have Ye Old Tea Shop. I do love that name, but it's the last time I'm going to be saying it. And that building looks rather quaint. And I did quite like that building, that's why I bought it, because I thought it would look nice on the high street, and it does. And then next to Ye Old Tea Shop, that's definitely the last time I'm going to be saying that, we have Highland Mills. Very nice building and goes very nice there. Now the next part in this video is going to be focusing on the turntable, which is going to be moved on. It's going to be removed from this area and it's going to be sold. Because, to be honest with you, I've hardly ever used it. I have used it when I've not been filming a few times, but when I have been filming I can't remember ever using it. It's not really had that much use, to be honest with you. It does work, and the way it works is this old Hornby controller down here. And it does work, as you can see. It does take ages to do a full rotation, but it does work, as you can see. You can see it's quite dusty as well actually, so it needs a clean. But this turntable is going to be moved on. It can go the other way as well. But it needs a clean though, especially with all the amount of ballast that's lying around the shop. So that turntable will be got rid of. That track there is going to come out. Because the turntable, it looks out of place there, to be honest, and like I say, I don't use it, really. So it's going to be removed and it's going to be sold on to get some money out of this. Which will go on towards something else, like perhaps a new building or something. So the turntable has now been removed, and this area now looks a lot different now that the turntable has been removed, especially as you can now see the bare baseboards. But this area, this big space here, that will soon be filled in with scatter. The same scatter that I've used for this area, so that it blends in and matches. Also these walls here, which I've made from card and just glued together, I'm going to be adding another one in along there. Or potentially I could, if I wanted to, extend it so it instead ran along up to here. But I don't need to, because I like it as it is. Because then that way it means I can have some extra detail here, such as this static grass, which I will be filling this area in where the track's been removed with static grass. I have also laid in this extra piece of track here. That's for the 158, so that, as you can see at the moment, it had to be pushed back to remove the track, and you can see very clearly there that the 156 won't be able to get out. So the extra bit of track has been put in place so that the 158 can move back further to allow the 156 to get out when I want to use it. Those walls, they're going to stay where they are. I mean, I could change them if I wanted to, but I don't want to, because I quite like how I've done them, to be honest. So with the turntable now gone, this area now looks a whole lot different, and it looks better, I think, as well without the turntable, which the turntable has now been sold off. I did sell it without the controller though and the power pack, due to weight and packing, because we had to modify a box to fit the turntable in, and we couldn't really fit in the controller or the power pack, so I've held on to the controller and the power pack, and the turntable has been sold off separately. But anyway, so what I've done is, this area where the turntable used to be has been scattered over, using the same scatter that I've used for the rest of the area, so that it blends in. I've added a wall here, which that's just white card, glued together, and then glued in place. And I do quite like these walls. And especially if you detail them up, then they do look quite nice. And then where the track used to be running along up to here, which of course has been removed, that has now been filled in with static grass. As you can see, looks much better now. I've got a big space here now, so I might have to try and add a few little bits of detail in this area. Not sure what I can put there yet, so got to think of some ideas for that. And then for this bay platform, this piece of track here has been extended so that the 158 is parked next to the 156, and that means now that if I want to get the 156 out, I can do without it hitting the 158. And I might put a buffer stop here on that piece of track, which I might very well do. I might look into getting one of them Rory buffer stops actually from Acroscale. Something to think about. I have kept the these walls here as they are, because originally they were built to go around the turntable, which is why they have that curved look to them. But I'm not going to take them out and reposition them, because I quite like them as they are. It's a nice little detail feature, that. And also the way that they curve around there, it's something to sort of remind me that the turntable used to be there, if you get what I mean. It's something from the past, basically. Now over in this area, I've added a funny scene. It's a scene that's quite funny. You have a steamroller there, just in the middle, and in the cab, if you look, there's a driver. Now over on the other side of the steamroller, where the driver happens to be looking over, there's a woman flashing at him. And then, to make it even more funnier, in front of the steamroller, about a few yards in front, there's a tent, and there's a bloke hanging out the front of the tent, and he's got his arm sticking out. Now the idea with this scene is that the driver driving the steamroller is distracted by the woman who's flashing at him. And if you look just in the cab, you can see straight on where the driver's looking at, you can see the woman flashing the driver. So he's completely distracted, but he doesn't realise that there's a tent in front of him, and the bloke is outside the tent and he's got his arm sticking out, because it's to create the illusion that he's waving his arm at him going, "Stop, stop!" It's something that you'd see straight out of a sitcom, like Dad's Army or something. I can't take any credit for the idea, because it was my dad who gave me the idea. But, you know, this is what I like doing. I like to put some funny scenes on the layout, because it's not only something that I can look at and I can get a laugh out of it, but anybody else who looks at that scene going on the layout, I'm sure it might give them a laugh too. So it's all part of the fun of the hobby, and you can use your own imagination and be creative with the hobby as well. Now this next bit, I want to talk about the pavements. Now the pavements along this area, all along here and along there, they were all painted on using grey paint. They were very crude, to be honest with you, and they didn't look all that good, so I decided to make my own pavements. And these have been made using foam strips cut to shape and length and then glued into place. The gaps were filled in using model filler, and a number of coats of Hornby 33 matte black were then used. Then I used some scale model scenery curbstones and glued those into place, and you can see the end result here. And these pavements here look much better than the painted ones, much more realistic looking. Especially because what I can do with this area is I can have vehicles parked on the curb. For example, you've got that transit van there, and also this car. See, it gives you that illusion that it's actually parked on the curb because it's got that lean on it. Whereas on the painted pavements you can't really do that, because it just looks like they're just flat on the surface, like as they do on the road, to be honest. So a little update on the church. Along there and that little bit there, I've added some static grass on the front. And that's the light static grass, and that gives a really good effect, because before I just used scatter, which didn't look as nice, but that looks much better. So now I'm going to show you some more new items that have arrived for the layout. First up, we have an item of rolling stock, and this is a Hornby Lswr 20-ton brake van. These first came out last year. This particular version, however, in the brown with the red ends, is a release from this year. So it's not been out for long. I've wanted one of these for a while, and so now I have one. Next up we have some figures for the layout. Now the figures that I have here are made by a manufacturer called Allscales. Now I didn't know that this manufacturer existed until recently, because I found them out when I saw double O gauge and N gauge figures of Captain Tom Moore being advertised on the internet, and that took me to their site, and that's how I found them out. So here is the bag of figures. We have 6 of them in this bag in total, and so I'm going to show you them all. So first up we have a young couple kissing. And I have an idea where these are going to be going on the layout, so I'm looking forward to putting these on. Just let the camera focus. There we go. Now let's take a moment to appreciate the paint job of these figures, because the paintwork on these is second to none. It's not like your figures you get from China that come rather crudely painted and have imperfections, and to be honest, those figures look much more better when you paint them yourself, to be honest, once you've repainted them. But the paint job on these figures is superb. It's been done very, very professionally. Next up we have a half naked lady leaning on some tyres. I bought this one for a laugh because I have got a funny idea for a scene on the layout, so I just had to have this one. So that's that figure. Next up we have a pregnant woman holding a tummy, because why not? And do apologise for knocking the camera. And I also apologise for keep putting my hand at the back so that this camera focuses. But also, let's take a moment to appreciate the detail on these figures as well, because these are by far the most realistic looking figures that I have ever bought or owned. There are other manufacturers that make, such as Hardy's Hobbies and Model U. They make figures as well that are also really lifelike, and those are made by laser scanning real people. I don't think Allscales figures are made from laser scanning real people, but they look like that they are, because they're just so realistic and so lifelike. And the detail on these figures is just amazing. I mean, I'll just show you the others again that I've already shown you. So, very, very impressed with these. Then the last 2 figures, we have a young girl taking a selfie, because why not? And then the last figure we have is a teenage girl in ripped jeans. Again, do excuse my hand to make this focus. And just look at the detail on the jeans. It looks like they've actually been ripped. So, very, very impressed with these figures. Sorry for knocking the camera. So, those are going to be going onto the layout later on. And I shall definitely be buying more figures from these guys in the future. And I shall put the link in the description to them, so I do highly recommend them. Now the last new item I have to show you is the piece to resistance. and here it is, and I have had to move the camera back a bit so this can all fit in shot. This is a Oxford Diecast Fowler ploughing engine and Fowler plough, and this was produced for the Great Dorset Steam Fair in 2019. I saw this on Hatton's, I looked at it and I wanted it, and the rest is history. There's no prizes for guessing where this is going to be going either, because this has been bought to go on the Steam Fair scene on the layout, just over there. So the ploughing engine, with its balance plough, has taken its place up on the Steam Fair, and just look at that. I mean, that looks fantastic on there. It is worth mentioning that none of these traction engines are fixed firmly in place. They're not permanently fixed on, they are just loosely placed on. I have no intention of moving them around, but if I ever wanted to, for example, let's say I put some traction engines in this area here, which I shall be doing, and I wanted to film something from this angle down here, I could move them out the way if I wanted to, but that would depend on the mood I'm in, to be honest. But they don't need to be glued in place, even if they're never going to be moved around, which they aren't. There are a few other traction engines I'd like to get my hands on. I've already got another item on its way to me for this scene, so you'll be seeing that later on in this video. There are a few other traction engines I'd like to get. I'd like to get one of those Showman engines, and maybe a few other ones as well. But I don't want to completely clutter this area up with traction engines, to be honest. I don't want to get too many of them. I just want to get a nice selection of them to fill some of these empty spaces that you see on here, and have them scattered around evenly so that it makes this area look more interesting. So I now turn my attention to this area here. I've added the young kissing couple who are kissing up against the wall, and we have a policewoman at the scene. Could be a policeman or a policewoman, but I'm going to portray it as a policewoman. And while she was driving down the road in the police car, she spotted the couple, and so she's pulled over and she's going to have a word with them, because the couple aren't supposed to be there. Naughty naughty. But while she's going to do that, she doesn't notice that a teenage lad has opened the door of the police car and he's about to either steal the car or equipment out of the car. And she doesn't notice because she's paying more attention to the couple. But while that's going on, there's a woman who stood there flashing, and she's come up and she's just flashing the policewoman, but the policewoman doesn't notice. So it's all happening in this area, it's all kicked off. But this is the fun with model railways. You can think outside the box and be creative and use the imagination, and it really is great fun to do some funny scenes on the layout. Now, because I really enjoy doing funny scenes on my layout, it gives me a laugh, and I'm sure it might give you guys a giggle as well. So that's part of the enjoyment of the hobby, I think. It's always good to have some funny scenes on the layout. So for anyone who's curious as to how I opened up the door on the police car, which is an Oxford Diecast Ford Cortina, I cut out the door using a cutting disc and then glued it into position so that the door is open. But it wasn't easy to do, I have to be honest. And in doing so, that little top piece on the door broke off, so then I had to scratch build one. But I don't think you can tell, to be honest. But having the door open really does create a better effect, because it looks like then that the car has been pulled over. Because otherwise, if the door is not open and it's just left shut, it just looks like that the car hasn't been pulled over and it's just driving by at the moment when there's a policewoman stood there giving a couple a telling off. So having the door open on the car looks better, I think, for this scene. It creates a better effect. And I should also point out that having the passenger door open on the car with a teenage lad wasn't originally in mind for this scene. It was just going to be the police car, the policewoman, the flashing lady and the couple. Having the door open on the car with the teenage lad was a later idea, because then I thought, hang on, I could add extra humour to this scene. Wouldn't it be even more funnier to have the door open on the car so that it looks like there's a teenage lad who's going to either steal something out of the car or steal the car? That would add more humour to the scene, and so that's where I went about opening up the door of the police car. And I'm sure some of you will probably be thinking, well, hang on a minute, if he's going to be stealing the car, then it's on the wrong side, because that's the passenger door that's open. He should be on the driver's side. Well, thinking about it, it wouldn't really be safe for him to get into the road and open up the driver's door. Not if you've got cars here coming down the road. So it's more safer for him, really, to open the passenger door open, because there's no reason why he couldn't open up the passenger door and then getting through to the driver's seat through that way. But it still works if he's going to be stealing equipment out of the car, for example like a radio. So it still works. Now, for anyone who might be wondering about the flashing lady, that's a figure made by Knock, which comes in the Ladies of the Night pack. This figure was being sold by an online retailer, split from that pack. I can't remember the name of the retailer, but this particular figure comes under the name Marlene, so if you search that in Google you should be able to find it. Now, I do have a second figure, exactly identical to this one, which is in another part of the layout, which I'll show you in a minute. Now, the reason I bought two is because I had a plan to... My plan was to always have this stripping lady figure in this scene here. But I bought a second one because I had an idea where I could possibly move these figures around, particularly when I'm doing running sessions. Each running session I could have the figures in different locations, so they'd effectively sort of become mascots somewhat for the layout. But I abandoned that idea because, to be honest with you, to keep moving them around the layout, that's going to be very, very limited to what you can do with that. So here we have the other flashing lady figure, which is the same one as the one you've just seen. This one is slightly different because it looks like that she's had a tan. So she's on the high street, and what's happening is you've got a person there who's holding out leaflets. I don't know if that's a man or a woman, I can't really tell, but it could be either. And they've stopped that woman and asked about the leaflets, if she'd like one. Like, for example, it could be for a holiday or a spa treatment or something. And just as they're offering the leaflets to her, she's just decided to flash them. Oh boy. So I've got some more new items to show you guys that have arrived in the post. Now, the first new items I have to show you. Now, recently Metcalfe did a competition on their Facebook page to win 5 of their mini kits. And to win the competition, all you had to do was to like, share and comment on the post. I entered the competition not expecting to win anything. And on the day that the competition ended, where they would draw the winner, I was editing a new video when suddenly a message come through on my phone, and I thought, what's this? And I looked at it, and then I saw it was a message from Metcalfe telling me that I was the winner of the competition. And that took me by surprise. I had to do a double take at it at first, and I was quite ecstatic because I wasn't expecting to win. And also I got to choose the 5 kits, which are all here. So we have a stone fountain, a bush shelter, a greenhouse, a platform kiosk, and station clocks. So those kits are going to be keeping me busy, and I'm looking forward to building those and adding them to the layout. And then the last new item to show you is this. This is an Oxford Diecast road roller with tar spreader. Both of these are new tooled items, and this is a new release. So the road roller and its tar spreader have now gone onto the Steam Fair scene, as you can see. Now, what I've done is just to add a bit of variety. I haven't put the tar spreader behind the steam roller. Instead, what I've done is I've put the tar spreader at the side of the roller, just to make it more interesting and to add that little bit of variety. And I'm very happy with those items. Now, they both are exquisite models. So all 5 of the Metcalfe mini kits have been built. They were built over a weekend, and they were quite fun to do. They are quite easy to do, they're not too difficult to make, and I've enjoyed building them. They are great fun. So here is one of those kits. This is the stone fountain. I am very pleased with this one in particular because I've done a water effect in this. Now, you do get the paper sheets for the water with this kit, but I wanted to add a water effect in this because I thought it would look better that way. So what I've done to create the water, I've added Woodland Scenic's realistic water, and then to create ripples I used Woodland Scenic's water effects. The ripples are only subtle, but that's what I was aiming for because I think they look better like that. And I think that looks brilliant with the realistic looking water in that now, so I'm rather happy with that. The bus shelter has been added to the high street. Along with the shelter, I've added the bus stop sign and the bin. Now, with the bus stop shelter, I haven't really added the glazing in the shelter other than on the roof, because you do get some adverts for the bus shelter, so I wanted to add those instead, because I thought that might make it look a bit more interesting and a bit different. Because I've already got bus shelters on the layout that have windows in them anyway. With the adverts on them, adds a little bit of variety. So I've added the timetable. I've glued it there in that position because the photograph on the packet that you get with this kit shows it to be there. On the inside there's an advert for a Lamborghini. That just had to be added as soon as I saw that one, because I do love the look of a Lamborghini. On the end there, that's an advert for the Black Cat. On the inside we have an advertisement for a dessert. I believe that's a sundae. Yum. Then on the inside, on the other side of the shelter, we have an advertisement for McDonald's. Who doesn't love a McDonald's? And then on the front end we have an advert poster for the movie Jaws. As soon as I saw that one, that just had to be added onto the bus shelter. So I'm really rather happy with where that's been placed. Now, moving over to the platform, if I just lift off this section of the roof, you can see I've added the newspaper kiosk. And that's filled an empty space on the platform, and I just love where that is. You got those 2 young train spotters there, just in front of it. I mean, just look at the detail on the kiosk itself as well. The only thing is, though, you do get a printed door on the one side. And I built the kit in a way that the door was facing upside down. So I had to cover that up using those 2 posters on that side there. And also, I added those posters on the other side, so that blended in with the others on the other side. So what I've had to do is I'm having to use the imagination that the door to get in and out of the kiosk is at the back of the kiosk. But that doesn't matter because you're never really going to see the other side of the kiosk anyway. So I figured, well, why not have the door on the back of that? And then I've also added the platform clocks. These were the easiest of the mini kits to build, and I'm really rather happy with the clocks as well. So that's that one. and I will show you the others. They've all been glued onto the canopies because I thought that was the best place to glue them, really. As you can see, there's another. If I lift up this canopy, there's another clock just there. And then on this canopy we have a clock on that one as well. So each platform has a clock. And last but not least, you have the greenhouse. So in the garden for the bungalow, that's where I've added the greenhouse, because there was no other room in any of the other gardens for it to go into, really. So I've added it over there. I know you're probably thinking, why is it just at the side of the trees there, because you've got all the trees at the front? Well, anybody living in the house can still get to the greenhouse, because all they've got to do is to walk in between the trees and then they can get to the greenhouse. I've also got a guy there with his wheelbarrow, ready to do some gardening. And so I'm rather happy with that. Some more figures have been added over on the seaside. Now, the figures are the cheap ones you get from China, so they're not amazingly detailed, and they did have to have some touching up, particularly on the hair. But, you know, they look alright on the seaside, I think. So that has filled in the seaside a bit more, because a lot of this was empty before and had no one on there. It was mostly looking like a ghost town with just a few figures on. There are still more figures that I can add, in particularly over in that area there, and also around there, but that will be done later on. I've also added a figure down by these beach huts on the decking there. And also, speaking of the decking for the beach huts, they now have some steps. As you can see, that has come from a Metcalf kit. So the figures, as you can see, I've spreaded them out fairly equally. You've got some over there by the front of the sea. They're getting ready to have a swim. Also, you got a couple of women there having a conversation, because why not? So now I'm going to show you the other figures that I've added to the layout, the ones that you saw earlier in the video. So in this area here, we have the half-naked lady leaning on some tyres, and we have a photographer, and he's taking photos of the lady either for a magazine or a calendar. Now, the photographer figure is made by Hardy's Hobbies, and it's actually one of their train spotting figures, but I'm portraying him as a photographer rather than a rail enthusiast. And that figure is new, he's just arrived in the post actually. Now with this scene, the photographer is fixed in place, so he can't move around, so he's glued in place. However, the woman leaning on the tyres is not fixed in place, and that so it gives me a bit of flexibleness with this particular scene. So she's facing in the position as she is in the moment, but I could turn her to face that way. I could get her facing that way. Don't ask me where to get these scenes from. But you know, it's all in the fun, I guess. Could have her facing that way, possibly. So it's just so that I can move the figure around, which I shall be doing, so I shall be just having that woman in the same place all the time. well, in that same position I should say, because it will be moved around. On the station platform, if I just remove this canopy, so you can see the figure a bit better, I've added the young girl taking a selfie. And I put this figure on the platform, over on platform 1, because I have seen people taking selfies on stations. So I thought, why not have a figure on a station platform taking a selfie? And I think that figure looks really good there, I think. Makes a nice little scenario on the platform. The other figures have been added to the high street. Coming out of Parsons Properties, we have the pregnant woman, and she successfully acquired a property for her and the soon-to-be born baby, as well as her boyfriend or husband, girlfriend even, possibly. And again, I just can't express just how amazing and realistic the All-Scales figures are. I mean, that is just stunning. So, highly recommend you go out and buy some of these figures. They do add a world of difference to the layout. Then over by those terrace terraces, I've added a couple of wheelie bins. Just outside Beatties, there's a guy there who's sweeping the pavements because the high street's got to be kept clean. He's not a new figure, he's a figure I've had for ages, made by Bachmann Scenecraft in there. It's the figures that come for the street pack. And then over here, just near the hair salon, we have the young girl wearing her ripped jeans. So I've just received 2 new couches in the post. These are the Hornby LMS Stania Period 3 couches, which are the super detail ones. And I now have a rake of 6 of them. I already own 4 of them, so I went out and bought 2 more of them, so I've got a nice rake of 6. And so they will go behind my LMS locos very nicely. And they are fitted with hunt couplings. I will just point out with these couches though, is that I've got the closed couplings in these couches. Now I haven't pushed the couplings all the way in. I have glued them in place, but I can't push them all the way in, because with these couches I have found that if the couplings are pushed all the way in, the buffers are touching, and then on the bends you get derailments. So to prevent that from happening, I haven't pushed the couplings all the way in, but I have glued them in place, so they're firmly in place, so they won't come out of the sockets. But so I'm quite pleased with these couches. They really are superb models. Now we come on to the village score, and this area has been redone because I wasn't happy with it the first time. First of all, the playground was repainted. There used to be a bike shed along this area here. I'm sure you guys will remember that. But I didn't like it there because it took up far too much space in the playground and made it all look cramped, so I got rid of that. I've also moved the building over a bit, so I think it looks better where it's positioned now. Also the security fencing, this is all made by Scale Model Scenery, which I've painted and then glued in place, which does look much better, this security fencing does, because the last stuff I used, it was mishmashed between the Bachmann Scenecraft ones and some made by Kit, which the manufacturer name I completely forgot. But the security fencing I had before that just did not look right. It was all mismatched and different sizes, and it just didn't look very nice, to be honest. I know there's no fencing along here, just on the end there, but I'm going to add some details there at some point to cover that up. I've also added a couple of wheelie bins, just there. And also over here you've got the Metcalfe playground kit. You've got those frames, which those are not new, they've been there for some time. I'm sure you guys will have spotted them in my past videos. And so it's nice to have those in there. So something that I've been doing on the depot is I've added some hard standing, as you can see. Now this is something I have been wanting to do for a while. Now I know you can buy hard standing from scale model scenery, but to save money, what I've done is I've made my own. It's just thick card, cut to length and size that I wanted. It's been then spray painted using Halford's grey primer, which I think is a very nice colour, and then it's been glued in place, and I think that that looks really rather nice. It does add a nice bit of detail. I'm not sure if you'd see hard standing in a depot in what's usually a steam depot, but I mean, at the end of the day it is my layout, and it adds a nice bit of detail because there was nothing here before. It was just grey paint. I did originally at one point experiment with adding plaster to sort of act like a concrete floor, but it didn't come out so well. Whereas this card, painted and then glued in place, looks much better. The shed itself is not glued in place, it is loosely in place, so in other words I can remove it. It's not finished yet quite, because I am going to be adding some detail to the depot. I've already added a cleaning cart there, which is a Bachmann Scenecraft model. I think it looks nice there, it just adds a nice little bit of detail. I'm going to add some other bits and pieces along here, which I think that'll be quite nice. So I'm quite happy with that. And also on shed we have my latest purchase, which is the Hornby Centenary Year Limited Edition Terrier Merton, and that's going to be in my next review. Now in this area here, on the seaside, I've taken away the ramp. The ramp that was there, it was crude, to be honest with you. It wasn't brilliant, it was just polystyrene. Chunks of polystyrene glued in place and then carved to shape. The ramp wasn't even to scale, because how it was made, vehicles wouldn't even get up the ramp, they just otherwise hit the front of the ramp. So I got rid of that, and what I've done is I've filled this area with sand, which is now dried off, and that blends in quite nicely. In a few areas there's some sand there that does look a bit lighter than others, but then it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, because it's not in real life anyway. You know, you can have areas that have got lighter sand than others. You know, I think it adds a bit of depth, but then that's just me. I've also added some stone walls across there, as you can see. And so that space now, that gives me the chance to put all the details there. Haven't decided what's going to go there yet, but I'm sure I can think of something that can go there. I can add more people, maybe some more beach huts, I don't know. But I do think that that looks much better now, as it's looking now. Because I just didn't really like the ramp. I wasn't satisfied with it, so I got rid of it. It's one of those areas where you regret and then go back to. Down on this part of the beach, there's a scene going on. It's all about to kick off. There are 2 ice cream vans on site. One guy's already been on site, he's been there for a while, but another fella has turned up on site to sell ice cream. Now they are both going to be competing that way, selling their ice cream to all the people that's on the beach today. Now neither of them is very happy with that, and because they're both so angry with each other, they're about to have a fight. So it's all about to kick off. You can see that that guy there, he's got his fists up, ready to fight, and you got the other guy, he's just got his arms up in the air. So it could be that he's either egging him on, or he's saying, well mate, no, let's not have a fight. Let's sort this out a more civilised way. You know what I mean? Let's not have a fight about it, let's settle it the proper way. And while that's about to go on, there's a woman there, right next to that ice cream van, wanting to buy an ice cream, not realising what's going on, or what's about to go on. So that's just another little funny scene to add to the layout. The two ice cream men, they're figures from all scales, and I did request them to have them painted to look as you see them here, which is exactly how I wanted them to look, because they're both being painted to look like ice cream men. And so I am rather happy with those figures, and again the detail on them, it's superb. So rather happy with those. By the church, the wedding scene has returned. This is something I've been wanting to do since I redid the pavements. There was a wedding scene there before the pavements got redone, and I have added the scene back. And so I am quite happy with this scene. So there you have the newlywed couple standing just outside the car, and there we have the vicar, and then you have all the guests that have turned up to the wedding. So it's not like a massive wedding, it's only a small wedding, but then doesn't necessarily need to be a massive wedding. They just wanted a small wedding, and so all the guests they've invited have turned up. That fella there is best man, hence why he's dressed like that. And those figures, they haven't been glued in place, they've just been held in place with black tack. And so I am quite happy with this little scene. It's nice to have. One last thing I'm going to talk about in this video is this area here, which is the incline for the narrow gauge railway. Or a incline I should say rather. Now before there was no detail on there. Didn't look very realistic and it looked rather plain. Well, there is detail there now because I've added these rock faces, which these are plaster cast ones made by Woodland Scenics, and they look stunning. That is a stunning bit of detail there to add. I'm not just saying that to be biased because it's my layout, but they do look stunning there. They have been used before on the old tunnel on the front, I'm sure you'll remember, in a past layout update. These are the same ones that have been used. Now some of them did have to be cut down a bit because they were bigger than the incline itself. Well, some of them were anyway. So I had to trim the tops down off some of them. But that's not to worry because most of the time it's going to be looked at like that from this view here. But to get rid of the white plaster look on the tops of them, for the ones that were cut down, I have painted them in a similar colour to try and blend in with the stone effect. In a couple of places I've added foliage as well, just to fill the gaps in. I've not gone too crazy with that. And they look fantastic. That stone wall there, that's now been put on an angle, because it was going straight up there before, so I've changed that. And I have added some bushes and foliage along there, because it was too difficult really to try and add any rock faces there. And those couple of pieces there, they're recycled bits from the tops. I had to cut off some of them. And they look fantastic there, I think. Certainly much better than as it looked before. So I'm quite happy with that area. Right viewers, that is all I've got time for in this video. This video has been long enough. I've shown enough stuff for this video that's been done on the layout. I don't want to make this video too long, or any longer than it has been already. So we will leave it there. Of course there's still some more bits to be done on the layout. I don't do all this in one go, because I'll burn myself out otherwise. So what's done next on the layout, that I will save for a future layout update video. I don't know when that's going to happen yet, but there shall be one soon at some point. But I just like to take my time with it and go slow. So all I've got to say now is to say thank you to everyone for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Maybe even get some ideas possibly for some of the things that I've done on the layout. So thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Don't forget to subscribe, and feel free to post a comment and smash the like button. Also, don't forget to check out all my other videos on the channel. There's some great content on my channel for you guys to watch. And I'll see you again next time for the next video. Until then, stay safe and take care. Ta-ra.